I'm very happy to be here. This is a very special moment for us to share a bit of the work that we have been doing with support of FAIR. And it has been very special for us to be a part of FAIR. We are not the usual suspects for this type of initiative, I believe. And I will tell you a bit of why we decided to apply and the type of work that we are developing under this network. My name is Jamila Venturini. As Caitlin mentioned, I'm Executive Director at Derechos Digitales, which is a Latin American-based organization which has been defending human rights at the intersection of technology for 18 years now. I'm together here with several dear colleagues from Derechos Digitales. I will be speaking today, but this work that we developed reflects a very collective effort from our organization. I'm here with Ileana, with Maria, with Alejandra, with Vladimir. I'm sure I'm forgetting some people, but I see here also Daniela that are joining us today. And I'm very happy to share this work, which reflects a very strong effort from all of them. I'm going to share my screen. It's a very simple presentation I want to share with you. Just to guide us a bit in this conversation. I hope you can see it already. So yes, to start, I'd like to give you a bit of a context why we decided to propose this proposal, which is called, as you could see before, Feminist Reflections for the Development of Artificial Intelligence. And I'm going to tell you soon what it was all about. Derechos Digitales has been dedicated to discuss artificial intelligence since 2019. We were mainly focused on identifying how AI is being regulated, deployed, developed in the region. And this all started from a diagnosis that the Global South in general, but Latin America in particular, were absent or underrepresented in global discussion regarding ethics and AI. And they were increasingly dependent of foreign technology, even at the public sector. More than that, I would say that mainstream adoption of AI for development, for inclusion, you name the type of justification, is being used widely by states in our region as an excuse to further subject historically marginalized populations into surveillance. Attempts to regulate AI, on the other hand, and I can mention the case of the first AI bills approved in Brazil, have often prioritized authorizing its use, regardless of offering protections against any type of abuses. I invite you to visit IA at .derechosdigitales.org to learn more about this context through the research that we have developed in the past years. But so you say, okay, Jamila, but why a digital rights organization mainly focused on policy analysis decided to develop a project under FAIR? And the first reason I would share with you is that as we want to incorporate the Latin American perspective into discussions around AI, ethics, and human rights, we need evidence of what is happening in the region. And that is relevant for our advocacy purposes at national, regional, and global levels. And I will talk to you more about that in the end of our presentation. The second reason is that our almost 20 years experience in tech policy in the region shows that no piece of legislation will itself change our realities. To question mainstream techno-solutionist narratives, it is necessary to go beyond documenting abuses and proposing human rights-based norms. And the FAIR initiatives gave us the opportunity to collectively imagine alternative forms of building technology and rethinking its role to build a world grounded on justice and equality. The questions that have guided our work, both at the research and the prototype phases, were, is it possible to develop AI that does not reproduce logics of oppression? What would it look like? And to answer this, we have dedicated to promote dialogues with several Latin American developers and data scientists that dedicated their work to developing systems that favors gender equality from different perspectives, and which I'm sure you will have the opportunity to learn from, as Caitlin was mentioning just in the beginning. They are the ones in the forefront of the dispute on to which purposes will AI be developed. They are in the forefront of the discussions on where funds should be directed to, where effort should be directed to, which type of AI should policy favor in its development. And this is a discussion that is ongoing right now. And as a Latin American organization, we know the difficulties of documenting our work while usually under precarious conditions of development and with funding that are too focused on systems and solutions more than on shared learning. And the FAIR initiative allows us to go further than that and allow activists from the Global South to build communities and explore together with them mechanisms to advance alternatives. And what we did was to propose to offer ourselves to systematize and disseminate these learnings. I should acknowledge that, as I said in the beginning, this work wouldn't be possible without each of the teams committed to share their experiences and knowledge with the groups that are still to start this type of work. And this is, and also with the generosity of a number of experts that offer their time to join us in trying to build principles for developing AI that is committed to another possible world. Talking a bit about our limitations, we try to facilitate spaces and mechanisms to systematize learnings that could be useful for others, activists, researchers, and developers from the Global South and from Latin America particularly. While the idea was to build a guide, this was questions in different moments, and everybody involved in conversations agreed that to be in service of social justice, AI must be territorialized. It must be intrinsically connected to context. And this is one of the first learnings that we would like to share with you today. It should be created for communities, but it also should be created with communities. And this is something we will explore a bit more just in some minutes. And that is why there is no predefined set of steps to be strictly followed for a system to be called a feminist system. Taking into consideration that, what we did was to develop an initial set of principles, which were built from dialogues with the women experts working on these topics, and the review of different declarations of feminist principles related to technology, since the feminist principles of the internet to the data feminist approach, and we could mention a number of different types of efforts to do precisely what we try to do here and to systematize what a different form of building technology would look like. And we call this initial approach an exploratory guide, a proposal to go from principles to practice. And this was the first initiative we developed under FAIR, in which you could find in Derechos Digitales website, and I will leave the links in the end of my presentation. And that particular work includes a literature review and an analysis built from interviews with several feminist researchers and activists developing systems in Latin America. And it gives 5 considerations to be taken into account as we prepare to develop or to propose an initiative based on AI. So these are preparatory principles to be taken into account, and they basically incentivize building teams and communities that are connected and that are informed about the decisions they are going to have to make while developing a system. I will go back to that in a moment. But I want to tell you that for the prototype, we decided to continue this work, now creating a space for collective reflection regarding the development of feminist AI. So in the beginning, we said we would go from principles to practice, and I would say that in the second phase, what we did was to come back to practices, from practices to principles precisely. And then again, we invited Latin American experts, but now to exchange with the teams that were supported by FAIR to develop their own research. During 2 months, the Derechos Digitales team, led by Juliana Guerra, facilitated thematic dialogues to encourage joint reflections based on participants' experiences and learnings, and to share recommendations and methodologies. And before I go into these recommendations and these methodologies, to give you an initial insight of them, I want to go back a bit um, and share with you some thoughts on how Latin American women are developing and reflecting about AI. And the first thing I want to mention is which type of project is being developed. And I hope that any colleagues here that are leading those projects can complement me and correct me if they have other views during the questions and answers period. So mainstream and commercial AI projects are grounded in the idea of transferring reasoning and decision to machines. This is present in the very idea of artificial intelligence, that is basically giving the attribute of intelligence to something that they think artificial. And we could explore a lot of implications of that name and of that reasoning to life in this planet. And I know several of you have already done that and already thought about that. But I want to emphasize here that this form of imagining and building technology put humans into a condition of passivity. I don't know if that would be the correct form of saying it, but as passive receivers with regards to the machine. And the way this is usually done has a lot of implications. Considering only human rights implications, we can mention how they affect our rights to freedom of assembly, for instance, but also our rights to be informed, our rights to express ourselves, to have access to justice, among many others. And we have several examples to share with you. But feminist initiatives from Latin America, and this is what I want to highlight, they go in the precise opposite direction. They propose to use AI systems to advance AI governance, to distribute power, and to give more autonomy to people, and particularly people who have been historically subjected to different forms of oppression. And here, the projects that we have the chance to follow in this process were related to how to distribute power and give autonomy to Mexican indigenous language interpreters, marginalized groups that are targeted by state use of AI, or even women crowd workers responsible for training AI systems that are by design prevented from connecting one to another. So while some scholars, and I mentioned the work of Matteo Paschinelli and Vladan Joler in their No Scope Manifest, they mentioned that the use of AI could be done to expand knowledge. And it seems here that Latin American developers and the examples that we have here go beyond that. They don't only expand knowledge, but expand knowledge to expand agency and the exercise of rights. And again, I would be very happy to hear your thoughts on how you see that in some minutes as we have the chance to dialogue more. And now coming to some of the learnings that we systematized from the dialogues, the second editions of the dialogues. In both phases of our project, we highlighted the need to build a diverse work team that can bring different experiences and knowledges to the project. And we can think of diversity both as intersectional, but also as multidisciplinary here. We also highlight the need to build collaborative teams in collaboration together with communities, but this was brought to us in a very radical form. It's not only about consultation, prior consultation, some forms of participation or input from community. It's about making collaboration meaningful, which imply in some cases even building spaces to share knowledge on technology and artificial intelligence, but also on sharing the principles that guide such communities. So it's not only unidirectional sharing of experiences, but it's also learning from others how they view and what are their views of the world as they approach to a problem, for instance. So it's necessary, one of the participants of this dialogue said, to understand the politics behind each technology and the politics behind each technology option before we agree on how to advance or how to not advance. And that should also be put into consideration in every initiative that proposes to build systems together with communities and that wants to be grounded in the principles of justice and equity. And of course, building mechanisms for people to protect their autonomy by not exposing them to uses of the information that they didn't authorize or uses that are not necessary for the purposes of the system. Anonymity, pseudonymity, data minimization are key criteria to be taken into consideration here. As having into consideration, understanding if training data sets or even pieces of algorithms are built from minimal ethical standards before using that. And that's what it means to understand the politics behind technologies. And finally, there was an interesting call for the use of open, free, and interoperable systems and for sharing knowledge for others, precisely what we were trying to do here. So there was a call to document processes and to share them so that they can multiply in other initiatives that share similar beliefs and principles. But at the same time, there is also a very interesting element to be discussed here, which is how the community participates in this decision. And if we're talking about open by default or free software by default, how can communities, how can we respect communities' decisions as taking that into consideration on how do we share with these communities the principles that we want to achieve since the beginning. Because communities also have to be informed and be able to inform which type of knowledge and which type of information they want to share with others. And that's key for the type of process that we are describing here, as we heard from the participants of these initiatives. So coming to an end, and I would really like to hear you more about that. And I would say some things before finalizing these initial thoughts. Latin America not only has a strong feminist movement, it has a strong feminist movement that is disputing imaginaries, that is disputing the infrastructures of technologies. But we also have a history of trying to build forms to advance alternatives for technology. And we have a very vibrant free software movement, increasingly counting with participation of more diverse groups. And Maria Encalada from Derechos Digitales is here to prove and to share her experiences on that, if she wants, in the chat after this. Being a woman leader on free software in Ecuador. However, we feel that the basis for these initiatives to advance are diminishing. They are often operating in precarious conditions. They are often subject to market options that are guided mostly by extractivist and solutionist logics that are not in line with any of the practices that were mentioned here. So there is an open question for Latin America, as I said in the beginning, as to which type of future we want to build in terms of AI and in terms of technology. And this decision cannot be taken without taking into consideration what is being developed on the ground and what is being mostly invisibilized by mainstream conversations and mainstream development of software and even adoption of software. So the question that is open right now is, do we want to have a future that is based on increasing dependency from foreign infrastructure, or we want to foster a future in which we can have a call and we can have a say in how our information, our knowledge would be used and shared, and for what technology, which purposes will technology serve in the end? I can expand a lot on what are the situation right now, but I really wanted to leave you as with these questions, because I believe there is a strong connection on what we are doing in FAIR, what we are doing in terms of fostering other forms of building technology, and the several conversations that are happening at the policy level, nationally, regionally, globally, and how these two can contribute to one another. If as we, as a region and as a world and a global south in January, dedicate to define the legal basis under which AI will advance, we have the opportunity to learn from these practices and to define mechanisms to foster other forms of building technology. As I said, these initiatives are possible thanks to flexible forms of funding, flexible forms of accessing the conditions to do this that are not necessarily dependent on reaching pre-established results. And this allowed teams to build true connections and true forms of collaboration with communities, which we believe as the Derechos Digitales that are key if we want to build technologies that are grounded on justice and that are grounded on equity. We hope that this work that these collectives are developing in Latin America and around the world, and that we try to systematize in our documents, not only inspired other projects, but also can inspire other funding initiatives and can inspire our governments to build mechanisms to foster these types of projects. And I would love to hear your thoughts about this. So how can we create mechanisms to foster these types of relationships to make them more sustainable in time? So I will finish with these questions. I'll leave you with my thanks, and here are the references to both works that we have done in English. They are also available in Spanish and in Portuguese, and you can find them in our website if you wish. So I'll stay here for now.